next is our approval of the agenda. Clark, is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, I don't think so.
Anything that any board member would like to change? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I saw Dustin and I saw Ken. All in favor, raise your right hand. And we're off to a 6-0 start. Next up is our Citizens Open Forum. It's a chance for anybody in the public to address the board. We do have one person signed up at this moment. It's again, a chance to address the board. The board may not address you back, but we could clarify and ask a couple of questions if need be. Up first, we have Dylan Yoder. Dylan, if you could state your address, come on over here if you don't mind. We'll get you on YouTube and make you famous. If you don't mind standing over here towards.
Okay. All right, here then? Which way shall I face?
Get you a little bit
Right
further
here.
out.
There you go.
Right.
Sorry,
down
sorry.
there.
All right, you want me to face this way?
That's fine.
Okay. So basically, I'm just here to advocate for a few auditorium renovations and stuff that I've noticed that needed a little bit of benefit. In the past few years, here, I just like to start with the fact that the reason why I come to Haven is because of the degree of inclusiveness that exists here. I feel like we have multiple students who do very good things in many different activities and stuff like that. I mean, this year we had a football team do the best that they've done in many, many years. And this past week we've also had 2 students who have qualified for things like State Honor Choir. And we've also done many different things with our debate team, our forensics team, tennis, and I could go on, but I won't take up that much time. But anyways, my point is, students come here to Haven because there's a multitude of things that they can do here at an excellent level. And in the past few years, we've spent a decent amount of money and attention on the sports, and that's a good thing. Honestly, that brand new gymnasium is an amazing thing out there. And I always love football games, football nights to spend in the brand new stadium out there. But at the same time, every time I perform in that auditorium over there, I can't help but notice the scuff marks all across the floors, some of the seat backs that are broken, and a great many of the armchairs in there where the armrests are just not present at all. It's just, I don't feel that in terms of finances, the fine arts is as represented as the athletics. And that's not to say that the athletics are lower than the fine arts in any ways. In fact, I personally have been an athlete during my time at Haven, and I love the things that we've done with the athletic department here. I just feel that the fine arts deserve some sort of credit here too. It'd be nice if we could get all of the lights in the auditorium working to where we can have a fully functioning show and production that looks nice and brightly lit up. It'd be nice if we could get a bit nicer carpet in there. Just basic things that would improve the production standpoint of the overall fine arts departments in general. It'd just be, nice to update a few things every so often. That's basically my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. It was kind of like theater in the round here, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't sure which way to face, so.
Appreciate that. Anybody else who may have come late? If not, we'll move on to item number 5, recognitions, presentations. Clark?
Well, let's talk about the auditorium a little bit. Introduce Sarah Seif. You know Sarah, but we've started working with Sarah. She represents Landmark Architecture. So we've met with her a couple of times about our auditorium and what we hope to do with the auditorium as far as upgrades go. And so Sarah is going to help our district work through that process. And so I'm not sure how often we might see her, but we'll start out
what I brought with me is kind of the phasing of how things work in hiring a construction manager at risk. So when we talk about the auditorium renovations, the first thing to do is, well, let me take a step back. The first thing to do is get us started on those drawings that would upgrade your auditorium. The thing to do while that's happening is to start the process of hiring a construction manager at risk, who, once we have those drawings done, can take those drawings and get bids for you to do that work. So that first sheet that you have is the public notice that needs to go out in a paper of record for the school. It can go out in 2 or 3 of those, and that sends out the request for qualifications. That is what sends out and lets contractors know that you're interested in hiring a construction manager at risk. So that needs to run for 15 days to let them know, hey, someone's interested, we've got a project out here, we're interested in it, and they've got 15 days then to put in their request so that they can know about this project, and we can send them the information so that they can then turn in their qualifications by the date that we decide. Those highlighted items are things that would need to be decided on. And after that publication date, we would have a date that needs to be turned in by. They would have a certain amount of time to get that into us. We would then, as a group, decide, shortlist that to 3 to 5 people, 3 to 5 firms. And from there, we would then move on to the interview process. They would turn in proposals, and those proposals then become part of that interview process, and we would interview 3 firms. We'd shortlist to 3, and then we would interview from there. It's a longer process maybe than what you might have been thinking it would be to get that going, but it's what's required by the state for any project over $20,000 when you decide to go to construction management at risk. And I believe that's what Mr. Leo is what's going to happen. That's the process that needs to happen for this to go forward. I just wanted to get that in front of you as soon as we could, because it is a process that needs to happen for this work to happen by the summer. As far as the workload, we discussed, and you can read it there in that first paragraph, these are just rough drafts, but we've discussed house lighting, we've discussed the potential for stage lighting and sound. We've discussed replacing ancient electrical panels. That would go right along with that sound and lighting, because those panels are so old. There is water right there by those panels, right there on the stage. We need to take that canopy and that water out, because it's right close to those panels, and that's definitely outside code. Obviously, seat replacement, flooring, finishes, probably some acoustical panels on the walls. All those things have been discussed as part of what we talked about. Electrical nuance, and we've got a good list of names to discuss both theatrical lighting and sound system. We're getting them out here as well. We're meeting with Mr. Montez and Mr. Payne to get their thoughts on those things.
Just to give you a little more information, really our choices as a school district, construction manager at risk, as she's outlined there. This is something we could take on ourselves and try to bid ourselves. So we started looking into that. We started running into some challenges. One with redoing some electrical panels and circuitry became a little more complicated than we wanted it to be, and for us to write specs became a challenge. We had a few construction folks that we would begin to start to communicate with, and they weren't totally comfortable with it either. So when you involve an architectural firm, you involve an electrical engineer, and it starts to be much more thorough, and some of the specifics come together.
did our bond project, that, we did a construction manager at risk, right?
That's right. So we were, I think there was 3 of you that were on the board at that time, we went through interviews at that time. So it'll be a similar process to that. We're hoping it's a much smaller project than the $12 million. I'll put Sarah on the spot here. So as we jump into a timeline, I know this is an important concept that we talk about. I know how much these guys enjoy the word special board meeting, so in our perfect world, we would probably try to avoid that. And so the question would be, does our timeline fit with maybe Sarah's thinking along it? So obviously we have a board meeting January the 11th is the next scheduled board meeting, and then the next one would be the second meeting in February.
And I think the opportunity would exist to at least review the request for qualifications that would come back from this first page. If we did get the newspaper, you know, we got that notification out, and we could get those requests for qualifications back. I think that January 11th target date for reviewing those and narrowing to a short list exists. And then if we could get that, those notified and request for proposals back from those firms. We do have to have those interviews in an executive session. So we could shoot maybe for the February board meeting, in an executive session portion of that meeting for the interviews.
And still be okay
And
for
still
a
be
summer
okay,
project?
because behind the scenes of all of that happening with the construction management at risk, we're still doing our part. So the hiring of the construction manager doesn't hold us out by any means. You know, we're still holding our meetings with the people we need to in terms of the facility side and with our electrical engineer and everyone else. Just working until we need to.
I heard 2 different numbers on the short list, 3 and 5. There's 5 here.
Between 3 and 5 firms would send their request for qualifications back, which would be like to get, and then you short list to at least 3.
Okay.
If you get less than 3, then you're dead in the water, is the best way to put it. You need to have 3. And I believe Mr. Wheeler indicated that at least 3 have asking this, if he was spoken.
That's correct.
And do you guys think the short list, or we do? I don't
No,
remember how
that's
that works.
as a board.
Okay, I couldn't remember how that worked.
So we could put you back on the agenda for the January 11th board meeting, and we would
Right, and that is contingent on, you know, this being an acceptable document to put out in public notice. The timelines and dates that you're good with, you know, me selecting or us working on right now, to get that back in time for that January 11th meeting, which is definitely doable.
Well, the Clarion is our official newspaper.
And
They
if you run into the Clarion,
print once a week is all, so.
yeah, we would, as soon as possible.
So it could be printed 3 times then? Because you said 15 days.
Just has, it has to be in 15
consecutive
days.
Yeah, it doesn't have to.
Yeah.
So if we publish on Thursday, we count 15 days from that.
So,
But no, it doesn't have to be like every week.
Right.
okay, so it's 15 days from the first day it's published.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Whenever that publication comes
So
out.
we'd have to publish it then twice.
And you can select other newspapers as well if you want to broaden it to Lexington News, which that we will.
That'd have to happen pretty quick.
And it's not probably
Does anybody have any questions? This is the beginning, how we get it going, so appreciate you showing up and starting us off. Any questions?
Sarah, am I correct that you wouldn't be choosing or sending out invites to generals, or would you notify them too, or?
I can absolutely do that. I know that there have been, you know, visited the building already, and they may be well aware that it's coming out, and Mr. Weedle or myself can contact them and let them know that the RFP is formally available. We're happy to do that. state board that will know about it and they'll let,
Okay. On the state website, I think.
Like she said, we know of 3 who have said yes, we'd be interested in interviewing and bidding on it, but we expect to get some more once we post it. Pretty confident that we get our mandatory 3.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
We'll visit
okay.
tomorrow.
Thank you.
We're moving into our consent agenda, and if you notice, we've got an added item in there. We've included Clark Superintendent Report. But first up out of the chute is our financial report warrants with Danelle.
The ending cash for the month of November was $4,512,72.06. Our expenditures for the month, $814,275.31. Payroll, $420,182.85. We didn't have any transfers in November. The warrants for the month, $394,092.46. We had 3 checks over 10,000, Ben E.P., $23,474.17, food service. The city of Haven, $15,617.28, utilities. Pure Zone, $12,024.94, COVID supplies.
Does anyone have any questions for Danelle? Okay, if not, we'll move on to the principal director written reports. They're in your drive along with everything else. Some of the items in there we'll be discussing later on in our actions portion of the agenda. I know, Dr. Moore, you were asking at the bottom of your report, you were looking for some clarification. Is that going to be something that comes up later that we can talk about?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for any of the directors on their reports that they have submitted?
I have a question just in general for the building administrators or principals, sorry. Just curious, and maybe, I'm sorry if I missed it in any of the reports. I do read those, and if I missed this, I'm sorry, but I'm wondering about mental health with our kids, especially the ones that are at home, but not only that, but we're also asking some young kids to do some things that they're not used to. And so I'm sure our counselors are engaged, but are they doing anything in particular where they're reaching out and encouraging mental health? I'm just curious.
I know for us, we still continue our advisory times with the students, meeting with them, and the point of that time is social emotion. And therapy providers is still doing some lessons and some things about taking care of you, having a plan of health, I know, plan of action. Those things are important when our kids are satellited. And we want to make sure that we don't skip over that, so we should work fairly diligently against that and then keep our ear to the ground. Something else we just do, I think, a pretty good job of our teachers reporting those things back to Tara. We've had a few things we've had to work with some kids on, and that's okay. We're glad we are because we're here.
I know our change in our building has been challenging for our students, even just going from the regular classrooms that we're in and just having the little movement that we've had. Our counselor has put in a lot of time with kids. We get daily notes from teachers that, hey, can you meet with this kid's upset. struggling with the adjustment the most. And so and some of them moved classrooms, so we're having their original teachers meet with them, just kind of check in with them on a daily basis. It's been a huge adjustment for our special ed, with our paras, because they're used to certain paras, checking in on them at certain times, and they don't have that ability anymore. And with the sixth grade being in the other buildings, there are kids that over there who are still struggling with that. So I know that Miss Kelly, our counselor, goes over and checks in with them pretty regularly. I would say, if not daily, at least every other day. Just being a person over there, she pulled some kids just the other day, utilizing the resources and technology that we do have to be in touch with kids' needs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Atherton will be back when we discuss learning models down in the agenda as well, so we can address that then. But he and Mr. Kirkpatrick are double sharing duty between here and the ballroom.
I see.
Anybody else have any questions on the written reports?
First, I did have one addition there on mine. If you don't mind, I'd introduce Dylan Yoder. He's our Stuco representative. We're going to start having a Stuco officer come to our board meetings to just kind of be someone you can bounce stuff off of as a representative of our high school kids. And so, may not always be him on the meetings, but we'll try and get one of the officers here.
I believe we have a verbal report, is that correct?
Yeah, our athletic director, Jared, is here just to talk about some movement with Keisha.
So I'm sure many of you are aware and have heard, and it's been widely publicized and on social media platforms and on the news platforms. I've seen it on KWCH and Kate. Keisha's made some decisions here recently, basically since Thanksgiving, that affect not only athletics but also activities. They recently, so back in November, end of November, they passed that there would be no fans allowed at, for us specifically basketball, but for any winter sports or activities. There was an appeal to that recently, a week ago, and the board of directors voted to revise that. So effective Thursday, December 10th through January 28th, 2021, interscholastic activities will allow for attendance of up to 2 parents or guardians per participant's family as allowed by local board of education or health department restrictions. So what that means, participants, because that was a term that Keisha needed to define, because there was a lot of things, they were receiving a lot of questions about that. So participants include players, coaches, student managers, cheer squad and coaches, dance teams and coaches, pep bands and directors, and student journalists. And then a couple notes with that, as they go further to clarify that. Coaches may have parents or guardians, or a spouse or significant other. Children of coaches and administrators do not meet the definition approved by the board of directors. The school board members do not meet the criteria established by the board of directors unless their child is an active participant. All spectators must be masked the entire time while in the facility, even if they are socially distanced. And then no substitutions for parents. So, for example, if a parent can't come for whatever reason, you could say, oh, we want grandma and grandpa to come. Strictly parents only. They have defined this multiple times and are very strict to it, and I know our league is also dedicated to following that as well. A couple other notes. This may be one you guys aren't familiar with. There is a moratorium period over the Christmas break, over the winter break, that student athletes are not allowed to participate in their athletics. They can't practice, they can't play games, they can't be with their coaches, they can't be in school facilities. Now, if they go play basketball or something, or if they were in tennis or something like that, or bowling or whatever, if they can do that on their own or with a couple friends, that's out of our control. But they can't be on school grounds, they can't be participating in those sports. That got extended this year. So normally it's only, what do you think, Parker? 5 days, yeah. This year it is from December 23rd through January 4th. And then competition may begin on January 8th. So what that does for us, that changes our basketball schedule a little bit. We did have to take one high school basketball game and change the date on that from January to February. And then we're in the process of changing one of our middle school dates as well. Because we did have games before January 8th, so that does affect us a little bit. But our coaches are good about, following that winter moratorium, even though it is extended this year. The board of directors also took action. I won't read this whole thing to you because it's lengthy, and I'm going to present something to you later in the action items. Essentially, everyone there has to wear masks. The only exception to that are the people participating in the activity and the officials officiating that activity themselves. And Keisha says they need to be masks need to be worn in the manner that they're intended to be worn while at the event for the duration of the event. So those are the highlights: the moratorium, the mask mandate, the parents being allowed in. Those are the big ones that Keisha passed and is expecting all of their member schools to follow. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of knowledge about Keisha if you weren't familiar. We are a member of the Kansas High School Activity Association, which allows us to participate in postseason. So we have the opportunity to go to sub-state and state, or whatever the sport may be, regionals and state. We get to play other member schools. We get to be part of Central Kansas League. This gives us a great opportunity for networking with other schools. It gives us certified officials that have been trained and are certified by Keisha to do varsity events. It also provides us, and this is always not, I do present this at my parent meetings, and the coaches know about this as well, catastrophic insurance for all of our athletes that we have in all of our sports. We do have to pay a little bit for that. So each year, we pay anywhere between $1,500 to $1,600 to Keisha for the high school. That's your membership dues, and that is your, I can't remember how much it is per kid, like $9 a kid or something. I might be wrong on that. But that gives them catastrophic insurance. That kicks in after $20,000. So if there is, and that's for any kid. So, and they based off last year's numbers. So I think we had over half the high school involved in an athletic activity last year. That means that we have that many covered for this year, and then so on down the line. Wanted to touch base with Keisha a little bit to make sure I was clear on all these rules. They said if a district, its fans, its school board, or its staff were to openly violate or go against Keisha's rules or bylaws, they would be given a warning, and then if violations were to continue, they'd be deemed a school not in good standing. A school not in good standing would mean no postseason play, sub-state or state. It would also mean no member school in good standing could play us. So essentially our season would be over. The reason I bring that up is Keisha has received, we're only a week into these new rules and bylaws that they've passed, and Keisha has received numerous complaints and photos and emails and letters about all of the violations of people not social distancing, people not wearing their masks properly, allowing more than just parents into the game, allowing parents and their kids or other siblings and whatnot. And so I wanted to stress that to you, that being a member of Keisha allows us to do a lot of different things. And I guess my next question would be, or a question for you guys would be, when reflecting on fall sports and basketball thus far, there were some concerns by faculty and administration about people actually following these guidelines, specifically the mask rule. So my question to you guys would be, what are your enforcement directives for administration? And I will also say we had parents email us about allowing fans back into the stands. We are only 1/10 of one vote. Our league gets one vote in the board of directors. So we're only 1/10, because we're part of our league, of our vote. So we did tell them, hey, we want spectators to come back in whatever capacity we can, but there was a lot of disagreement amongst the league schools about what that actually looks like. So I guess what questions do you guys have for me?
So are you specifically asking us what you should do if somebody's there not wearing a mask?
In a way, yes.
You certainly thought it over. What would you guys recommend?
steps that we'd like to do, but we wanted to give you guys feedback. Make sure that everyone was on the same page.
You first, or us first?
What?
What are those steps?
Well, I think the first step we would do is, ask them, they're obviously gonna give a warning. And then if they continue to not have compliance, we'd probably ask them to leave.
But there's gotta be like signage up on the
Yes.
doors. I mean, there's gotta
Yeah.
be plenty of advance warning,
Yes.
correct?
And everything I just read off to you after tonight, I'm gonna post it.
Okay. No, I think everybody's so hungry to be able to get in there that I
Yeah.
would hope that they would be
I
compliant.
think what's frustrating is that this has been a poor policy to mask in our buildings. It's been a Reno County policy. It's been a Acacia policy, but up to that point, it was just recommendations. Now it's officially a rule of theirs. And, I just think of volleyball, which was an indoor sport, and, it's tough. And we have fans that don't agree with it.
So in our action items, we will share our written,
A lot of
Winter
it, a lot of
sport.
it I just.
Okay.
winter sports activities, procedures, so.
Okay, so we can wait until that time, be thinking about it?
Yeah, I think so.
Any other questions?
How many people are you gonna have, be able to enforce it? I mean, it's gonna be a big job for one person to do, especially if there's a few non-compliant.
Well, I will say at Kingman, not a huge issue. I would say that we're 90% compliant most of the time.
Okay.
A lot of people wanna follow the rules. And a lot of the parents that we had email us and said, we want fans back in the stands. The mass consensus was, we wanna be in the stands, we'll do what we have to do to be in the stands. But there are some that are willing to commit to that. And I know that masks has been an ongoing debate here amongst the board, and we would just like some direction on how you'd like us to handle that.
Okay. So I do see that coming up as number 8.
Yep,
Correct.
and I have something to try to
Great.
hand out to you.
Had a great fall season.
Yes, excellent. Excellent.
Congrats on that.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Well, look who's advanced in the agenda.
Well, I'm gonna just pick and choose a couple of items, because some of the items, I'm gonna just give you a little heads up that they're coming later on in the agenda. One is our learning models, and I've done some board reports to you guys, and you know that we're gonna talk a little bit about, I would say 2 topics. One is, how long do we stay in remote in middle school and high school? And obviously, there's gonna be some challenges for us with our gating committee of that procedure coming back from Christmas break. So we won't have the data that we typically have. So we'll cover more of that in more specific detail later. And then also the micro cohort classroom situation at now both Yoder and Hayden Grade. I would say most of the feedback I get from the buildings is there are challenges with a potential back and forth situation. So I'm gonna give you a few options as to what we might consider for longer stays in those categories and those locations. So that's kind of the learning model precursor to the agenda item, and when we get there, I'll give you a little more information. The next one, if you notice on your agenda, I have an item down below that says Chromebook purchase. It's not typically our time of the year to make Chromebook purchases, but if you remember, our Sparks federal stimulus money gave us a nice chunk of money. We ordered some Chromebooks out of that. Whatever we purchase out of Sparks has to be received by December 31, 2020. All of a sudden, we found out that those Chromebooks that have been ordered for 3 months, maybe, they're not gonna be there by December 31. And so now we've placed a replacement order, and they've already come in. So it just depends on the vendor, sometimes, what we found out. So, later on, I'm gonna ask you to approve the original purchase of Chromebooks, because now that can no longer be taken out of Sparks, and it has to come out of our capital outlay technology budget.
to spend $15,000 on Chromebooks without you guys approving it, unless it was Sparks money. So that's why that one's on there.
So the Chromebooks that are already in, those will be paid with the Sparks money?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. And Danelle's spent a good amount of time on Sparks spending. It's complicated, it's a mess, it's challenging, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, because we have to be done by the end of December. So this is kind of our last week of trying to get things in and get them processed financially, so that our auditor can come in and do a federal audit at some point. Last thing is COVID leave, and I put the document in your drive. I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but the topic I want to discuss is, if you're not familiar with COVID leave, and some of you that might have businesses probably are, but the federal government allows for COVID leave. So if you're in a quarantine situation, you're directed by a health department, healthcare professional, you can qualify for COVID leave. You guys knew I went through a quarantine situation, so I actually applied for 8 days of COVID leave because I was gone for 8 days. So that means I didn't take leave. The district still paid me during that time. If a substitute's needed, then the district picks that up. It allows an employee to take leave based on a COVID situation where they're not taking their own leave. That expires on December 31, 2020. As we all know, COVID leave is not going to be over at the end of the year. There's still going to be some need for it. Some school districts are taking that on themselves. And so in your drive, I put a proposal, a potential policy. I'm going to just put it off until January. On January 11th board meeting, that'll come back up, and we can do it 2 ways. One, we can extend the 10 days of leave, or 80 hours of leave that was originally granted for this first semester. So if they didn't use it, any employee, they can still use it second semester. Some districts are even choosing to apply another 10 days of COVID leave, starting now through the school year. Either way, and I'll just say, someone said, well, why would we do that? Bottom line is, we have some staff members that aren't going to have much leave. I'm going to talk a lot more about our classified staff than our licensed staff. So those are my concerns, is we're going to have some staff members that could get put into a quarantine. Does anybody know we're only going to get quarantined once? No, you can get quarantined 5 times. So there's a side of me that wants to look out for some of our employees and make sure we have some additional leave in place. But to do that, that's going to require board action. So, like I said, it'll be back on in January, but I want to give you a little heads up that take a little time to look at the proposed policy. Like I said, there's 2 ways you can go. One is just extending the original 10 days, and 2 is adding another 10 days. But either way, as you might imagine, it could cost our district some additional funds, but it still might be the right thing to do to cover our employees. Okay, Bryce, like I said, I've given you a couple of topics that we'll cover later, but that's what I wanted to share early on. I had it early because I knew it was going to be an agenda item.
Appreciate that. Thank you for all the reports from everybody, by the way. Next up are our minutes from 2 different meetings, November 9 and November 19th, which was a special meeting by Zoom, and I can see, Danelle, that that meeting, it was not at midnight. You have 12 a.m. at the top, so let's change that. Anybody else have any Any changes to the minutes? That's all I saw. What about resignations, Clark?
Yeah, there are a few in your drive. I want to highlight just a couple of them. When we have people that are long-term employees that are going to resign, I think it's worthwhile. And as you know, we will recognize these folks towards the end of the year, but I did want to highlight two, and that's Gail Belzer, long-term employee, and Alicia Harbaugh, long-term employee. They'll both be missed, not that the other ones won't, but I like to highlight those that have been long-term employees. If you're wondering why we have them now, we do have an incentive that they inform us prior to the end of the calendar year, they get a little stipend. So that's why we sometimes get them in December, and that stipend applies in January and February yet too. But those two employees are worth highlighting as long-term employees, and they're employees that will be missed, and looks like retirement gobbled them up. So good for them.
So, Michelle Robertson, the counselor for Haven Middle School and Yoder Charter, echoing back to Jessica's concern about, are we gonna replace that person, immediately, or?
She's not leaving till the end of the year.
Okay, got that.
But yeah, we have intentions to replace that position.
Does anybody have any questions? Any need to pull any one of items out of the consent agenda? I'd like to echo along with Clark the appreciation for the long-time employees that we've had, and that we'll have a chance to tell them goodbye later this year with some of the presentation awards that we do. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. It's a minor change or two. Bill's got the first. We have a second with Ken. All in favor, raise your right hand, and we're 6-0 on that. On to our action discussion items. First up is our audit report.
Yeah, once again, we have Keith Jansen from Swindle, Jansen, Hawk and Lloyd, and Keith, we've gotten to know Keith over the years, because he's been here for quite some time. He's like that, that'll get you on the camera, and I know we gotta get you some camera time. But Keith, is firm, does our audit, and has for a long time, and he was probably part of this district long before I was, so he knows our history and our present, as well as anybody definitely from a financial standpoint. I'll let Keith share with you.
Yeah, it's been an honor to work with you guys. I think this is my third year I've worked on this audit or something like that, so it's been a great relationship for a lot of years. Every year you guys are required, you have an audit, and we are required to put audit report together. And the first thing that you're required to do, or we're required to do, is do the independent auditor's report, and issue the opinion on the financial record that payment, you don't get till about July tenth, as if it was received on June thirtieth. This year it was $340,400. So it was included in these financial statements, even though it wasn't in the bank yet. That's just a state requirement. They passed a law to require us to do that. On page 7, there's a big defined benefit pension plan, which is paper, you guys are all familiar with. On the last paragraph on page 7, it has a net pension liability. Well, the state has actually do all this kind of stuff, and they have determined that the actuarial balance of what your teachers are going to get at some point is $6,933,000. It's a required disclosure. You guys aren't responsible for it, but all your teachers will likely get that kind of benefit at some point in the future. It's just a required disclosure on that. On page 9 is a long-term debt schedule. During the past fiscal year, the funding bonds from 2009 were paid off. You can see that balance at the end of the year was 0. And the other 3 series that are out there, they will pay off during the 30-31 year. So that's less than 10 years from today, all the bonds should be paid off that are on the books right now. There's a schedule of bond payments there at the bottom of that page. You can see the principal and interest each year is between $1.3 and $1.4 billion. Stays about the same as you pay down bonds. The interest goes down, the principal goes up. Any questions on the financial statements or the notes today? On page 11, there is a summary of expenditures that compare the actuals to budget by funds. The general fund is supplemental general, or LOD as some people call it. You can see what was budgeted. There were some adjustments that had to be made, and the final budget, and you guys have spent every dollar of that, and that's what's expected. That's the best thing for you guys to do. Otherwise, the state will take that money from your allocation for the next year. The special purpose funds, there's some unspent money there. That's the way you build the budget, is you build it higher than you anticipate you ever will, so that you don't have to republish the budget. Otherwise, you have to go to the expensive effort to republish the budget. So, we had no budget violations, and, so that's good. I'm not gonna go over really anything through the next 30 pages, unless someone saw something they'd like to point out or ask on those. We have each fund by line. We show what was budgeted, what was spent, and we compare it to the prior year on those 30 pages, 28 pages or so. Also, in your audit report, there's a separate letter that was required to give you communication with those charged with governance. Some people call it a managed letter, but it's a number of things we're required to disclose with you. As we go through the audit, if there are things we think need to be changed, or if there's some violations that we need to report to you, we do that here. And on page 3 of the management letter, in the middle of the page, are prior year points revisited and current year points. I'm proud to say there's none noted on either of those. So all the suggestions we made in the past have been implemented, and we didn't come across those. So that's a covered gap in the guys have done a great job of building some of those special reserves for special balances and special funds. In the receipts, you can see with your declining enrollment, some of the closures that we had up there, the last 2 years, receipts are down $230,000 in the last 2 years, and expenses are up. So you've still been able to build your unencumbered cash balances, so that's really better than cash. The next couple of pages, we just show the balances of several funds, capital outlay. You built that fund up over the last 4 years, you've almost doubled that balance in there. Bond and interest, with the refinancing of some of those, the cash reserve is there, enough to pay a pretty good portion of next year's bond issue there. And then food services come down a little bit. Part of that is because your balances in food service are only allowed to be 3 months expenditures with less kids, that type of thing. The past year, expenditures were a little less, so we don't drop the balance in food service things. Special ed, that's the big unknown. You never know when you're gonna have some kids move in that need some special services. So that's one place you can put some money in the reserve for those, and you've been able to build that fund up the last 4 years pretty significantly. Any questions on either the management letter or the op report?
Where the graphs at? I missed them.
They were in that same management letter, they should be released. What is it?
Yeah.
There wasn't anything there. I'll get some sent out. I'm sorry, there should have been a management letter.
You got it.
Got the black, but not the graphs.
It's on that 600 page. No, that first two.
Page 4 is mine.
I'll get a few more sent out. I'm sorry. The last number of years, this district has made great strides in their financial stability. I know, being here as long as I have, probably 15 years ago, there were 2 schools on the state watch list for financial de-equity. So we've come a long way from being that to where we are today. And that's through a lot of changes, a lot of very hard work by the staff and by the board. So
You got any words of wisdom for us on the general climate? I mean, looking forward?
It's hard to say. There's still some, supposedly, there's some more increases in the budget for people coming. That's assuming we get back around and everything else. On the CPA, it does a lot of pack work too. We're doing some pack planning for a lot of people. And generally, people have pretty good years. There's some industries that haven't had as good hospitality, some of those. But most farmers had pretty good years, a lot of businesses had pretty good years. So I personally don't think that the state tax collection is going to be
Anybody have any questions for our auditor? It's a great opportunity to ask about our finances at this point in time.
I have a question. If you were a school board member and you knew that the interest rates were low and probably will be for some time, would you think about doing a bond? I know we did one not very long ago, but is this a good time to do that financially?
It is, if the dollars are there to do it.
I'm not saying like next year, just thinking ahead.
At some point, interest rates are gonna have to go up. We have such huge federal budget deficits and that type of thing. At some point, interest rates will go up. But for a year or two, I think they'll keep them down. Your rates are 2 to 3%. I have not priced those what they might be, but it doesn't hurt to call your bond people and see what it would cost. I mean, they're probably gonna make as much money as they'll save you to do it. But it's certainly not. And you've already funded some of those, and so the taxability of those bond issues are somewhat affected for people buying the bonds, and they may not be as attractive rate-wise since we've already refinanced those.
Okay.
But they'll have to, they can answer those things. Yeah, with interest rates at virtually all-time lows, it's certainly worth making a phone call.
Any other questions? It's always good having the auditor in the house. Appreciate your help. All right, if no further questions, we're gonna vote on this.
We will get you some of that.
Bart, do you have anything further?
No, Keith and I visited, prior to the meeting, and, we gotta feel good about our cash balances, but there is just a little, that little bit of cloud hanging over your head is when does somebody say you got too much? So,
Yeah.
I think we have to, and I'll propose a spending a little more contingency reserve tonight, so we'll talk about that later, but, I know when we went to Topeka with the budget, they kind of looked at us like, oh, you've raised your funds a little bit. So, that's something that's on my mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys have been able to do that, as well as give raises, you're not the lowest price, starting teacher salary or almost the lowest like you used to. So you've put some good money to it, and with the declining enrollment, you guys have done a great job of, being able to, handle your finances. The state allows those budgets, they don't tell you what is excess, and so that's a tough thing, they don't say, whoops, you went over that line, we're gonna start taking it away. But they don't want you to build up big balances. When they increased that budget for people last year, basically, they told you, give it to your teachers, and you guys have done it. You've done the balance.
Well, we had some good guidance along the way and good execution on Clark's part and his staff, so I can remember a time, and I think Bill maybe was on the board. I mean, I'm not kidding you. We had a hot water heater go out, and we're trying to figure out how to pay for it. It was tough, so,
There were some tough times in the past.
yeah.
It's much nicer to be in this position.
Yeah. I don't think worry about me having too much than where we were at. We had less than 10,000 in contingency, and like I said, we were getting the email about putting a hot water heater out, we don't know how to pay for it.
Well, unless anybody has any questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the report on the audit that we've just heard. Bill's got the first. We have a second from Paul. Thank you, Paul. All in favor, raise your right hand, and we're at 6-0 on that. Thanks again, Keith. Item number 2 is wrestling location update. And I'd like to remind any viewers or any guests that we have not approved wrestling, but we're doing our due diligence to see where we might place it if we bring it back.
This should be able to drive, so you should have access to this already, but
Okay.
I wasn't sure you guys had a- No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So, Clark and Dr. Moore and I, we've been investigating all the possible locations we could have wrestling. Obviously, the easiest one to think of is build a new building. I don't know where you guys would stand on that. Just had a brief conversation with a couple different companies, and looking anywhere from 60 to 70,000 for a 40 by 80 by 12 building. Didn't do anything official there, just made a couple calls just to get a rough estimate. High school basement, Chris isn't here, he can speak more to this, or Clark maybe can, but looking about 16, 17,000.
Yeah, that's in your drive, and we'll talk about bids here after a while, but we did get 3 bids on that basement repair, the one right here. You know, it came up last time, was the idea is, do we have structural damage, do we need to fix those, whether we have asphalt or not? The answer is really no, don't really have to, nobody really, all the contractors we had come in and said, you know, obviously it's a good idea to keep water from leaking in your basements, and so it's something you should do. But, yeah, we had a bid for the basement here that used to be the weight room. That's that, in your drive, it shows it as 16,882. We went ahead and rounded it up to 20 because we'd want to do some work ourselves, with repainting the walls and making it look nicer than just
Yoder Charter School, Mr. Atherton and I went over there, did several measurements, talked about logistics and things like that. Also talked to Margie about what it would cost to bus. I mean, if we truly have 15 kids that are interested, we'll have to bus kids out there on a daily basis in order for them to participate. 40 practices, based on the number Margie gave me, it'd be about $1,600. It can go from November to February, potentially. We would have to, my concern there is, and Mr. Atherton's concern was space. It's actually not much bigger, I don't even know if it is bigger than the high school basement. There's already a lot of things in there, there's bleachers along the wall, there's storage along the wall, the mats would have to be rolled up every day. So there's a lot of logistics that go into that. I'm not necessarily ruling it out, but probably low on the list of potential places. Lutheran Church, I know, brought that originally up, but
Yeah, I just finally heard back from them. They're not interested in us using their GM. I know at one time this district did use it, but they're concerned about the floor and the mats on the floor. They're pretty much saying no to that use.
And just to say it's concerned, what Dr. Moore and I talked about was just a lot of, I mean, we'd have kids driving to practice and crossing K-96 right there at that intersection. I know it makes a lot of people nervous, so that was a concern we had. Grade school gym, we don't envision this as a viable option, not that it's off the list, but, to have grade school has PE in there all day, plus she does a lot of setup, there have to be a lot of tear down on their part. We do use it for middle school basketball practice and occasionally high school basketball practice, every day that we don't have a game. So that, it's already being used. I know rec basketball also exclusively uses it now as well. So there'd be a lot of logistics and timing and things that have to be done with that. But like I said, to me, all these are on the table. Some are probably more viable than others. Grade school basement, I don't know much about this one. Water issues down there, but it is significantly smaller than the high school basement. So.
Yeah, I wrote that last statement, I say we, these two spenders, they want to build a new building. I'm a little more frugal, but I'm giving Dr. Moore some credit for that, too, as the spenders. But, in my opinion, the basement is our best option. It's a nice large room. It's in the same building, we have locker rooms in it. We have restrooms right there available. We're not traveling anywhere. Right here on the same site. Yeah, it's a little bit of money. And as you can see, you'll see when you drive, I had that down as a proposal for tonight to go ahead and adopt that low bid. And, I'm not saying to make a decision on the rest of it tonight, but I would probably say let's make a decision on fixing that. We're using it for storage right now, and so, if we have a bunch of rain, it's potentially gonna ruin a few things right now. We got some of the things jacked up off the floor, but, that would kind of be my recommendation. And you can take action on it later on the board meeting if you so choose, but, to make that our location, and, I'm not sure what their timeline is on getting that work done, and, you know, we don't have kids in the building, it makes, some of the projects easier to do, but, that's where we're coming from on that location.
So I heard a rumor that the new building was gonna potentially house like 3 activities. I don't, this is just word on the street. I don't know where that came from, but is there some other purpose that
I
might?
would envision, I mean, wrestling's only from November to February.
Uh-huh.
So I just, it'd be multi-purpose.
So, okay, I'm, like, what other, I'm,
Well, in the spring,
Don't know.
I mean, track, baseball, softball could all be in there.
all like,
During bad weather.
gotcha, okay.
In
I just-
in the fall, I don't know, tennis, but for sure football could be in there
Gotcha,
during bad weather or inclement weather. So,
okay, makes sense. I just
Yeah.
didn't know what, I thought maybe we were gonna add some more stuff or something.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Just kidding, I just didn't know what those other activities were. Okay,
It could be multi-use.
Sure, gotcha.
It wouldn't go unused from, February to back to the winter.
Great, thank you. And, again, that's coming up, we're kind of back end heavy on, some of our decisions here. It's coming up a little bit later. Number 3 is our Chromebook purchase that we spoke of earlier, Clark.
Yeah, that is in your drive. It's titled Haven 100E Chromebook Reorder. And so, that would now become a capital outlay purchase as part of our, what we typically would make in maybe April or May. We already had that order placed. It is the Chromebooks that, we were running. Matter of fact, the ones we replaced it with are nicer Chromebook. It's got a little more money on it, but it sparks better. So tonight, I'm asking you to go ahead and approve this other order. If you remember, our technology budget supports a Chromebook rotation. So I would say these 70 Chromebooks will be for next year's freshmen coming into high school. Typically, when they come in as freshmen, we give them a new Chromebook, and we expect them to use it for 4 years before we sell it to them potentially or to anybody.
We're on the one that we did get the order, how many Chromebooks did we get on that order?
70.
On both orders, there's 2 orders of 70?
Right.
Okay.
The other order will be paid for by Sparks, and it's going to 3rd grade. 3rd grade will become a one-to-one Chromebook. They currently have
Gotcha.
iPads, and they're ancient. They need to, bunch of them need to go,
Any questions? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve this purchase.
I'll make that motion.
Got a first from Jessica. I'll second it. All in favor, raise your right hand, and we're 6-0 on that. Next up is executive session for personnel, and we've got 3 little meetings all involving personnel in there. One, just for your benefit, is going to be for the board only, and that's to talk about Clark's evaluation. That's one of our most important duties that we do as a board, and tonight we're just talking about the evaluation itself. We're not actually doing it tonight. So we'll do that for about 5 minutes. Then we're gonna invite Laurel and Clark in to talk about a personnel matter. And then we have another matter that I have a conflict with, in which I'll be coming out of. So what do you think, 15 minutes in total?
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Does it? You think that's too optimistic?
That's pretty optimistic. I'm just worried a little bit about Laurel coming in.
You wanna go 20?
Let's go 20.
Okay, so I move the board recess to executive session to discuss issues with current staff members pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KOMA. The open meeting shall resume. I've got 7:15, so let's make that 7:35, and we're gonna begin with the board. And then I'll call Clark and Laurel to join us. That's the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Bill, I heard him. All in favor, raise your right hand, and we're 6-0 on that.
Same places you went last, in the hole, Dr. Boyd came over.
over a couple of times. That is our, Clarions are official. Hey, thanks for coming. Bring a suit jacket. Like the rest of the What are the lights?
right?
Unless they're wrong. I would just use the.
Good. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what's.
Once we get it all done. And that was two of the things. And, yeah. Well, it all comes down to.
It's too late now.
I would not. I would not.
cold.
It's cool in here. Put a sweatshirt on.
I think Jessica Lane to the restroom.
Yeah.
There's a couple of minutes. I think.
Yep. Did you get a call or anything? From Sean?
No. Didn't. Where did you know?
So you got some crappie, huh?
Yep, 27.
Wow.
They were all really nice too. A couple of them were 14, most of them were 12.
Were they deep and kind of hold
Yeah.
up together?
Yeah, they were in like 25 to 30 foot of water. And I'll just have brush piles in the ground. Teeny doesn't have much of that.
Just jigging or? Mhm.
Here in a month or so, Teeny will get hot. You'll be able to go out there. You'll see all the boats out there, just vertical jigging, catching figs out the other way. So if there's a nice day in the winter, you should head out there.
Yeah. Anytime. All right, we're back. Time for item number 5, Clark, which is learning models.
And I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. As a board, we made a decision to go to remote during the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so we have a little bit of decision to make for coming back out of Christmas. And so I'll just share this a little bit earlier. So typically what would happen is on the Friday before that week, we have a gating committee meeting. I start with the Reno County superintendents, and then we have a committee made up of principals, Rice, nurse. That's going to be a flawed process prior to coming back on January 5. So if you remember, the school calendar on January 4 is a Monday. It's a district-wide teacher workday on January 5 because it's still considered the end of the semester. So what I'm proposing for middle school and high school is that we would stay in remote for 4 more days, 5 through 8, and then on January 8th, that Friday, we would let the gating process happen as it normally would. One of our challenges is we won't know what our positive cases are. Well, we might if somebody calls us, but we won't be in school those 2 weeks before that. So part of our gating criteria is the number of positive cases, number of quarantines. That might be 0 in both categories because we won't know. We'll still assume to have the county data that we use as well. So I know there's some people that are losing interest in being at home, but that's still, I think something we need to do is consider that first week back and not make a decision until that Friday. So that's half of the idea here. And if you want to discuss that, when we're talking about that before we talk about micro that's fine. But any questions or clarification on what that might look like coming back from Christmas? I would
say, in visiting with some of the other Reno County superintendents, I know some people are making some decisions tonight, some other districts. There are some that believe coming back in remote is valuable because of the amount of get-togethers and travel that might happen over that holiday break as well. I don't know if that's necessarily our number one reason that I'm proposing that here. It's more about the gating criteria, being somewhat flawed information. As we come back after a break of being out of school for 2 weeks.
Anybody, do we want to divide that up? Does anybody want to, have anything they want to talk about with that?
Obviously, I bring it up because the board took official actions that said remote through December 18th, Friday. So we don't really have any direction as to what happens on January 5th.
Yeah.
We're really just talking about the 6th, 7th, and 8th. 5, 6, 7, 8, 4 days, because we've got to come back to school on Tuesday. And so on Friday, we would do our gating procedure as we usually do, and that would come into play the next week. No school on Monday, January.
Grade school will be
Yeah, that's right, we're gonna,
no, that stays the same.
Yeah.
Everything stays just like usual.
yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it. We stay in the current learning hours for those first 4 days.
Yeah, we probably didn't give that much thought at all. I know I didn't whenever we thought about that, but being on the gating committee, that input from where we are with, you know, the schools at that time is crucial. We need to be able to come up with the scoring, and I don't see how we can do it without.
I guess I will just wanted to clarify that in one of the reports, the like email reports, I think some of the confusion that I had was one, maybe I still don't have clarification on this, but the way I understood it is there was maybe a sort of a statement about being in this until February into this remote model. So, and I maybe misunderstood because I think later you clarified that that was not the case. My biggest thing is, you know, I have a student in the middle school, and I'm sure you all have heard from other parents. My stepmom, I actually, this should make me feel really young. I have siblings still in high school, in another state. And she told me they had 3 suicides since August. And I can see why. I know we don't have as big a school, but the mental health of these students is not good from what I'm seeing and from what I'm hearing from other parents. Probably not telling you anything you haven't already heard or don't know, but I'm experiencing that firsthand, and I mean, it's affecting all of us, and it's hard for me to leave a kid home to with high expectations of things that are a lot for their age, and I hope, I know that we have a lot of problems in our community, and there are a lot of numbers, but, you know, even on the KSB negotiations webinar that I heard, Luke Soba said that, and I can't remember, I wished I'd have taken better notes because I didn't know he was gonna say it, but he said that they did an evaluation of one school in the state of Kansas, that the students that were going to school, there were no cases that were, you know, in staff that were coming from that school, and there was like 427 people that they had identified, and those weren't going to staff. And so I just am adamant that our gating criteria and our committee try to do what we can to get our middle school and high school at least somewhat back in school, hybrid model, whatever we can. And I know you guys have to look at the numbers, and we've looked at gating criteria until we want to cry about it. So, but I just have to say my piece. That's why I, you know, made a comment. I don't care what happens necessarily. I see you have a good point about that time between January, whatever your date, I don't know what the date is, but whatever that Friday, I have no problem with that, but I know I'm the one that probably was the cause of this agenda item, and I had to speak my piece, I spoke my piece. High school and middle school need to go back. I'm done.
And Shannon wasn't here when we talked about it at the start. Shannon, the question come up is, are we still addressing mental health concerns? Are counselors still involved in things like that? And the other two kind of got to share their piece. Anything you want to share along the lines of really the middle school? I guess?
Yeah, we are, Mrs. Robertson, she's always connected with them on Mondays, we had, we were anniversary, she was, at PLT time, she was meeting with the kids, so she's still emailing them and making contacts with needed. And the expectation is our kids are logging in every hour in class period, so, just to help, kind of what you're saying, Justin, in that, we're keeping kids connected, and kind of keeping an eye on them throughout the day, if you will. You know, it kind of helps, I think, even that peer interaction, even though it's virtual, it's definitely not ideal, but it's far better than what we did last week, where, we just kind of got thrown the rules and we just, here's your work that you do, and let us know if you need help. We actually have, the kids are staying online every hour, until their next class period, so that accountability is huge, so, that's kind of the avenue that we're going towards, is really just keeping them connected on a day-to-day basis, so, we can keep an eye on them, so we can keep them busy, we can make sure they're not burning out,
What would you guys say, on an average day, how many kids are coming into the building?
Currently, I have about 10%. And I will say, even that, there's, three or four, maybe one or two of that, but we've identified 10%. Still in that range, that's not the same. Yes, it's been once a week, like you said, the school is struggling with organization, more contact parents, not contact with parents, and to be honest with you, they have like people who come in, all through that, that's kind of what I would think, but we do all of that, I also would agree with myself. As my teachers, not letting, not Friday, I got in the car and went banging on the doors, kids were fun, and the kids were doing okay. Putting everybody there if we can, not a perfect model, it's not ideal, it's not fun for any of us, but I'm gonna tell you right now, we're committed to our kids, making sure we're in the best position to be able. I love the kids. I'm gonna put on, I'm gonna just go over the team all the time.
Of course. Do our best to bring them into the building, to reach out to them, and find ways to connect.
Just to go along with Jessica's concern, she brings up the whole health aspect of it. Do you think our counselors in the PLP times have a way to identify what who those kids might be?
Well, I think we still,
Would they be invited in then too? I'm put you on the spot.
Yeah, we did, actually, the last, late start we had, I didn't, KP, I think was there, I was over at Yoder, but, we did our relationship mapping and then also our BASC screener, but it's our the social emotional screener that comes with the Aimsweb. And so she had, compiled a spreadsheet of about, 8 or so kids that were lower on those scales. And so she met with the staff to start to problem solve how can we connect with these kids and who's going to take who, to make kind of additional contacts of what we're doing. And did discuss with the staff about bringing a couple of those in. So I want to say one or two that we did bring in, but we did discuss those two types of data pieces to help identify that.
say, one thing I would very proud of my staff on the idea that they have came to me and I solicit from them. I know Shane does the same. Who's not connected, who are you worried about? I will say we've stolen some elements from summer, because we have a long time and we don't see kids in the summer too. We might with athletics and those things, and this is different times, don't get me wrong. But we've stolen some elements with there where, yeah, we're still gonna pull a kid in and, hey, if we gotta make it happen at practice or before practice, we can make it happen. So communication's key there. We're still keeping the conduit open there with blue ball and pro services as well. If kids need that service, that is the service that we also referred.
Lastly, what I would say, and man, what I've learned is, I'm crazy for making predictions about what's gonna happen with our gaming procedure. Some of you may have heard, we had a bunch of coin games today, so you never know what's gonna happen on a given day. We get up every morning thinking, when's my phone gonna ring, or something gonna happen, when is it gonna call and say, hey, I need you to post another couple of positive cases, or we need to quarantine the numbers, but, and these guys can tell me if I'm wrong, but my prediction, and Bryce is on the game committee too, is we will be back to hybrid at some point soon.
Clark, I would say at our hearing committee too, we looked at kind of the trends that occurred in the last month. We see an upward trend, and then we also saw a spike right after our holiday on, what was that, the 3rd, when we looked at that number? So it is kind of what the epidemiologists and specialists are saying, that there is a spike here after the holidays. We saw it out of our own gating numbers here in the county and with our own, and so I think for me, that would be a definite point to share with you guys tonight, that we did see a spike after the holiday. So it might be something to throw in the mix.
You know, part of the decision when we made it before, you had said that there were several students that weren't coming back no matter what, because have those families been reached out to be able to switch into virtual? And I mean, this decision needs to be made, not middle of January, so then that can't go back and change if we think it's gonna, so we can move them on to there, so we don't lose those students, and then get back to a hybrid model sooner.
We had, Karen send out to the folks on the community, got that possible?
Yes, so we sent out a message just that families need to reach out by next week, or this week, so that our teachers have time to order the supplies and materials that they need to start. So, and then there's been a couple other families that have contacted me, and we're getting them set up and ready to start on full when we come back.
So,
So, yeah, we did try to promote it.
well, the families that were worried about it,
If
say,
you're concerned and you're not sure the gaming process is gonna put you in the right model, semester's the time to consider it.
yeah,
And
because
here's how you do it.
I guess we don't need to make the decision based on a half a dozen families when most of them are wanting to be in session, so we're not being worried about it. And being at semester time, it'd be an easier time for them to make that transition. But the comments I got, basically, not a lot of them, but every one of them, is parents want the students back, at least in hybrid, so if at all possible.
I would think that's everybody's goal, to get back as quickly as we can and safely as we can, but I for myself, being on the committee and the way that we plug the numbers in, I don't see how we can do it before the 8th. I would be in favor of continuing out the way we are.
Yeah, I mean-
have our first gating committee and have that data, that local data to plug into the matrix.
I think the 4 days isn't a big deal, just, but it looks like it's gonna be longer than that.
Yeah, and that's what we commit to. On Friday, 8th, we would let the gating process happen naturally, as it always does. However it failed, that's where we go moving forward with that concept.
So the review session,
I'm gonna answer that with yes, based on what happens when we come in.
Right,
But, yeah, could there be, the problem is, like I said earlier, all of a sudden we could have 50 quarantines and 10 positive cases, and we're in a territory.
What if we extend the school year by 4 days and just start a week later?
I'm fine with that.
I guess
I
I
don't know if you guys heard me.
But the only problem.
could. Just extend the calendar 4 days.
Extend the vacation.
Extend the winter break 4 days and then start back on the following Monday. I know that, especially grade school, that's probably not quite as good because then you hit them a whole week at a time, but.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, at the middle school level, I'd almost be apt to say to keep them in school, because then we can still keep track of them from 8 to 3, you know, because they're logging in, because they're connected for those 4 days, rather than just have off, and we won't have that connection, you know.
I would
Can
say
we
that
suspect the
just when we
original
do,
problem
when we
was
talk about
Yeah.
contacting and just getting a hold of families, I know that the difference between the high school and middle school's contacts, amount of quarantines and things like that, and mine, is kids in the building. So they have a lot of students who have been close contacts, who have been quarantined or even positive, that they haven't been in touch with, because they're not coming into the building. So parents don't call in and they don't report it, whereas I have students in the building every day, so parents call in, and if we don't see those students, we call them. So I have a very accurate attendance count where those kids might be getting online every day, and they might not say, oh, I'm quarantined, so it's not reported.
So you said you had a second half to this question. Do we
Well,
need,
the other parts, I hope is easier, is micro cohorts. And, I put that out in the, update I sent you last Friday. But the concept would be, and we said this from the start, when we went to micro cohorts, we wanted to stay there for a while, because it would be crazy to try to move back and forth between, locations. And so, I guess I don't necessarily need board action on this, but I want to make sure the board is comfortable with us staying in micro cohorts. I wrote down, just options for micro cohorts. I think I said in my, this is when I talked about maybe January and February staying in micro cohorts. Not hybrid, micro cohorts. But, what we could do on micro cohorts is, if you wanted to, we could just say, we're gonna stay in it until we have a board meeting, which I have one on January 11th, so that wouldn't be much time at all. That would be the least, I guess, decision to make. Or we could say, hey, we're committed to it for January and February. I can tell you what I've heard from our buildings is, let's commit to it for 39 weeks, which actually gets us clear to March 11th, just before the week before spring break. So, I guess I just wanted to hear from you guys a little bit. We really don't hear too many complaints about our micro cohorts at the elementary levels. That's K-6 at Haven Grade, that's K-8 at the other charter school. We really aren't hearing too many negatives. I don't let me speak for it. Most people just really appreciate being in school, and so that seems to be okay. But, that was the other half of it, is what to do with micro cohorts.
I think that's different because of the logistics of it, and having to move everything, it's, the kids are in front of the teachers. We can stay that way longer, and it's not an easy thing to switch week to week, so.
Yeah, thanks, Bill, for saying that, because there have been some emails with this, you know, and Scott's doing a great job, and over here, doing a great job, but they don't see the difference. You know, they're thinking, you know, the grade schools are so much better in that they're able to see in person, but they don't see that difference that you're talking about of how we are departmentalized at the middle school, high school level, and the transitions that we have as opposed to my school.
So, I mean, personally, I'm good with keeping it that way, until we know we're fairly safe and so don't have to move back and forth.
You guys, I don't know for how much, I've sent you a couple of pieces of information about, if you remember, State Department of Ed, based on some guidance from some healthcare professionals, talked about the difference between the elementary age kids and the middle school and high school age kids. I know there was a lunch and learn, I sent you a link to that, and you had a chance to do that, I think it was last Wednesday. But really, that's kind of the latest thing that KSDE has put out as far as guidance on learning methods, is there's a big push to keep elementary kids in the building, but because they're not as apt to have the same symptoms or the severity of the symptoms, they're less apt to spread than middle school and high school kids are. So I still continue to hear that, some of the emails talking about people saying, oh my gosh, the elementary school's doing a great job, they're keeping kids in the building. And I can tell you that's kind of why we've had that difference, is because there seems to be some guidance and some science behind the fact that there is a difference between elementary and secondary. Just from that standpoint, and obviously, Shannon brings up the other side, the logistics of it are much more difficult than secondary.
I'll throw my 2 cents in just because I'm pretty sure this item is because I made some comments. But my goal with this, what I had said was that I wanted to kind of hear how it was going about micro cohorts, which I talked to Laurel about and kind of clarified, and I think you put some information out in your last board or superintendent update that clarified some of those issues. My main thing was, are we equipping teachers with the right tools in order for them to teach in a different session, in a different way, because some of them are at a church, some of them are in a cafeteria, some of them are in new settings. And so that was one of my concerns, and we've talked about that. I feel pretty good about it. One of them was more from a student standpoint. You know, the students are in the cafeteria, a fan was kicking on, and they couldn't hear the teacher. And so I just wanted to make sure, like, okay, this is great. I'm glad they're in school, but they can't hear the teacher. You know, like, I just want to make sure we're addressing concerns, and if there are huge hurdles, I mean, if I don't hear about it, I don't know. You know, I just kind of want to know how is it going and what's the pulse. And then I guess the other thing that I was concerned about is, you know, the idea is when you're supposed to be social distance, are the teachers actually following through with that to where, you know, the idea is to be distanced so that, I mean, hopefully they don't spread it and then you have a classroom full of 10 people plus teacher, and then for some reason everybody's up in each other's faces and then they all have to quarantine, kind of what's the point? Was kind of my three concerns that I just wanted to hear about. I wanted to know how it was going. I don't think we should do anything different. I think we need to go down that path and stay down that path. I do not believe we should be switching back and forth. I think that stresses the staff and the students out, and so that was why I made the comments I made, and I feel good about it. I probably shouldn't have said anything. Probably should have went straight to the source, but, you know, here we are. So, that's why I said what I said.
I just want to address the quarantines, and I hate to say this out loud, but our system has been working with lower and lower quarantines, with the exception of basketball, because we've had a bunch of quarantines in basketball. But I would say our micro cohorts, certainly are remote. There's remote auto work, because kids are together, at least in our building. But our quarantines are down. And I'm fully expecting, and these guys can tell you it's something I get a little worked up about. When I walk into the building, I sit up and I say, well, why are those two people right next to each other? And I've shared that many times, it's really a personal thing many times to know your boundaries from each other.
and it is a challenge. We as adults, as human beings, as kids, we want to be around each other. And it's what gets you quarantined. So it is a huge challenge.
One of the things that we had a teacher the other day in first grade, and she went and got tested, and she has one micro cohort, so she doesn't split, and she would have been, her entire class would have been out because of her. She ended up being negative. In the lower grades, I would expect that if it's a staff member, but in a recent, positive student case that we had, aside from basketball and aside from busing, there was only 3 students, and it was in band. And there's not much we can do about that. So I think that's pretty dang good. Not much we can do about busing. Marty and I communicated, we know, and bus drivers know where their kids sit. And that to me, and there was only 3 from the bus as well. And that's also pretty good.
Well, I think, Clark, you would like to be able to hear something back from us. I think I'm in favor just because I know that we have to have the local data for the gating committee to make some kind of a recommendation on that Friday. So I would be in favor of extending the remote out another 4 days at least to the 8th. Keep the micro cohort as it is. And, we've got a board meeting on the 11th. If we don't like it, we can certainly address it then. But, I hope we're back, to a hybrid situation or better just as soon as we can. But, I think, we've come this far and we've been this safe. I don't want to watch it by not giving it more of a chance. So, I tell you what, there are some incredible stories out there if you just, and I know, a lot of you are, but we've got some phenomenal people who are just truly heroes in this district and these communities. Parents who are doing great jobs, teachers, like you were talking about, Jessica, if you go over to the grade school and you got a classroom in the cafeteria, there's commitment, there's sacrifice that's being made there. You don't have your normal desk to teach out of. So there are some great things going on in this district, and we are really fortunate. We really are, believe it or not, I think. We've got, community partnerships with churches who are giving up their space, and a lot of communities don't have partnerships and the cooperation like we've got going on. So I know you're proud of that, Travis. I don't know if you wanted to chime on to that, but
I was just telling our gating committee the other day that dang it, I'm proud. Number one, we went to almost Thanksgiving, we went a long ways before we got into this situation. Number two, there's other large districts that are 40% truancy. There's kids that are failing left and right with remote. Right now, I ran the numbers this morning. Out of 1,500 grades, I got 4% Fs. This time last year, I had 4% Fs. We have churches that are stepping it up and helping us to micro cohort. Other districts aren't doing that. We've got a heck of a community stepping it up, making us a school of district of choice. Because I'll tell you, there's not much to brag about during COVID, but I've been bragging about this with my buddies in different districts. Well, we're doing this. Dang proud of it.
So I would make a recommendation that we continue the remote for another 4 days at least through the 8th, so the gating committee can at least have a chance to use local members. And do I have a motion on that? Does somebody want to step forward with that, or? Paul, got a first, do I have a second? Bessie, thank you. All in favor of doing that and leaving cohort as it is, micro cohort? All in favor, and we're in unanimous agreement with that, so thank you. Is that what you needed or what you were asking from us?
Thank you.
Okay. Number 6, consider bids for capital improvement projects.
I think this is in your drive, I went ahead and projected it, last month, we kind of got the intent from the board for us to look into some bids for some different projects. And so, we're ready, with some of those things tonight. First of all, I'll start with Yoder Charter School, and as you remember, this doesn't really complete the whole project, but, these are some things we went ahead and did. So, Yoder Charter School sheet metal work, and that includes, if you're familiar with it, it's got a red strip that goes around the top of the building. It's not all sheet metal, it will be all sheet metal, and then we'll have guttering as part of that too. There's several places where it's wood is showing, and it's rotting, and it doesn't look very good, and so this would replace all of that to a uniform, part. If you've ever been around the back of the building, the art room was built on a couple of years ago, and it has nice looking sheet metal and guttering, and so the rest of the building would be done with that. So, we've got 3 bids for that, with Ray Whipple being the low bid at $17,000. The other part is concrete work, and if you've been at the front of the building, you'll know that the sidewalk and some of the cement that's leading up to the building actually slopes into the building rather than away from the building. Seems to be problematic. And you'll also see this one add handicap stalls and a sidewalk to the new gazebo. Gazebo, what would you call that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so, Mark Worsby Construction is our low bidder there. We had 7801 and 3008, that's a total of 10,809 concrete work out there. And then lastly is window replacements, that's really on the back side of the library. There's some windows there that are, one, they look terrible, and 2 is they have, I think we tried to redo some grouting on them, but they need to be replaced. And so that replaces 2 windows in the back side, and as you can see, just 2 bids instead of the skirting glass was a little bit better. So I would like to propose that for your consideration tonight, that we go ahead and approve those 3 bids for the charter schools up there to start with.
Is there any concern that the Mark Correctly construction bid was so much lower than the other?
Yeah, it's interesting, Chris called him and said, are you for sure that's the bid you want to do it? And he said, well, yeah, it is. What's the problem with it? Was it low or high? He said, well, it was low. He says, well, don't you worry. He says, we can always do this. So, yeah, we did call and confirm this. Chris did the same thing. And I would propose to add the handicap stalls and the additional sidewalk. They're not there currently.
So,
That's about 35,000 then,
Total.
yeah, on the
Yeah.
Yoder project.
And if you remember, I showed you the original cost for the overall project. I think we put 70,000 in there. We've now reduced it to 60. This isn't done. There's some other things that we want to do out there yet, but we haven't quite figured out what we're going to do, like the poles out in front, the overhang. We think that needs to be, something needs to be done better, and obviously some painting needs to happen up there as well, so. I think we're gonna come in under budget out there.
Okay.
So So what about the Haven Grade Gym, the roofing? Didn't we talk about, last time was Chris here? My glasses, they fog up the mask.
Chris is not here tonight.
But is there water, are we actually getting water that's leaking in from that? Or not?
Yes.
Right?
Yes?
It comes into the bathroom. It's just been redone. That boys' bathroom that's right there.
Wasn't it kind of discovered in the remodel on the bathrooms, I thought, or not? Well, I'm all for the Yoder projects, and I'm also for clearing up something that's leaking water, if that's the case, but I can't remember.
So the Haven Grade Gym foyer was something else that we had on the list last month, and I'll show you the overall list here in just a little bit. So we went ahead and bid that, and as you can see, our Rippon is a low bidder there. And so that's the foyer of the gym, Haven Grade School Gym. So Haven Grade School Gym got a new roof with the bond, but it didn't include that foyer there. So that's $39,985. And then lastly, is that basement that we talked about as a potential wrestling facility. And we went ahead and had that bid, as you see, pressure, foundation repair. And I saw what their plan is. They plan to cut out strips, like maybe where the track bids there, and I'm confident enough that we ought to go ahead and do it without even knowing what we're going to do for wrestling. I would still recommend that. So let me go by.
I guess, do they have any guarantee if it doesn't work?
Chris, is watching us here, Clark, and Texas, is leaking around the fire panel,
They do.
the chairs and the storage, and approximately 4 to 5 weeks.
That makes it even.
No,
What you have to do.
it is included. I asked Chris that.
It's too tight for him, I didn't do it.
He said, no, I believe that's
Maybe
included.
they have offices in Wichita.
Because I thought the same thing.
I've seen the advertisements.
What you've approved tonight would be approved tonight, so if they were going to change that, I'd have to go. I think there's one now that's up top in the basement. Have they moved into that?
This basement?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was some put in not too long ago.
So this was the overall list, and we're looking at the items in blue. And so, as you can see, we're now looking at the renovation to the other charter school. We have that, budgeted at 60, and Bill says we're in the 30s right now. And, the gym foyer entrance has that new dollar amount on it. We have not bid the HVAC unit at Haven Grade School, but then I went ahead and added the HHS basement. And then we got up to 20, so that we could do some additional work ourselves.
I think all those items need to be listed.
Well, as you can tell, we got some others put on there that
Yeah.
will be big chunks. And maybe by doing, I guess the way I rationalize it, maybe by doing some of these smaller ones, that'll tell us a little more what we do with the auditorium. And that type of thing.
Well, I'm in favor of doing all these, but I do think there's a question on that Haven Grade Gym foyer, the way they itemize out the square footage cost, there's something that's not included there.
Yeah,
I told Paul, I asked that to Chris, and he said, no, I believe it is included, but what I'm suggesting tonight is, because I kind of questioned that too, approve the 39, whatever that number was, 39,985, and if they're gonna bill us above and beyond that, I'm gonna have to send it back to you for that. I'm not sure that the timeline's gonna happen anytime real soon anyway, but I know Ray Rippon has said that might be a spring break project rather than waiting for summer. But if you wanted to take that one out, put it off a month, we could, or you could approve the 39,985, and if there's gonna be extra dollar amounts based on that.
Well, the way I kind of read it, you won't know that until we read it.
Do you have his proposal with you? Do you have Ray Rippon's proposal with you?
I do not.
But I feel like either way, it's work that needs to be done. They're the lowest of three bidders. And their square footage cost is the lowest listed there, so I'm not opposed to it.
I just want to make sure they're not cutting something out, that they all bid the same thing.
It seems like it's the way we asked them to bid it.
Yeah, it was an RFP that was put out, and they all saw the same project.
We've used Ray a number of times too, and they've always done good work for us. Well, what's your pleasure, board? I have it all together, and I've got 91,726 if we were to do everything. That was longhand addition, because I turned off my phone for you.
I got 91,926.
You're probably right.
Third party? Chris had said that the Ray roof bid was the same specs as everyone's.
On the, other than, you know, as we continue talking about wrestling, is there any other immediate need for the basement? I mean, people will tell you basements leak. Out of that room for quite some time. What's stored down there right now that's crucial to not getting damp or?
I would say things like paint, tables, lunchroom tables, chairs, so what would get wet right now would be, I don't think we'd be doing.
Did you recheck the math, Kim?
I had Yoder Charter at 35,059. Then you add that to the 39,85 and the 16,882. I came up with 91,926.
Cool. What do y'all think? You wanna do it all? You wanna hold back on something? I wanna be able to make repairs to the auditorium.
I'll make a motion that we do what we bid there for
You know,
now,
the Reds,
the Reds,
not to exceed the 91,926.
91,926.
There's a motion.
They're not gonna be there before we have another meeting.
but you're right, they're not gonna be able to give us a dollar amount.
I had Thrasher come out and look at my basement back in the summer of flooding on the stadium. Do they offer, Bill brought it up to me, do they offer a warranty?
Pretty lengthy warranty, didn't tell me, didn't ask how many years or?
They're all structural things that need to be done. So.
They are. I like the goal, Clark too, that you point out that these are goals, Board of Education goals, number 3 on that, and one coming up as well. I think I've got a motion over here to approve all the reds. Is that correct? Is that what you
Correct.
said? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Also.
I think it's best to have
But
it.
he's eager to be second, so it's Dustin. I predict it's gonna pass. All in favor, 6-0.
Okay. All right. Clark, I'll let you take over. It's easy to drop
The
the name.
concept has come up, something to say thank you to our employees, and I've always said, I don't know if it's necessarily about the dollar amount, but a way to, as state suggests, KSB suggests that we call it a retention bonus. You might notice I put that as one of our goals, our board goals, to retain employees. And so this proposal would give all full-time employees a retention bonus of $150, and then prorate those that aren't full-time based on that amount, and to pay for this out of our contingency reserve fund. And to have our board members be prepared to give it out. Yet this week. Friday's the last day our teachers are in session.
Any other questions, comments? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion that we
Okay. Ken, make a
give the
motion,
$150
To all
retention
the-
bonus.
including the did you say that on the RCEC staff, including them?
That's correct.
Okay.
Including the RCEC.
Okay. So motion by Ken, is there a second? Jessica? Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 5-0. I'll go get Brett's.
Okay, Vice President tells me 5-0. Is that 4 against 4? Okay. Item number 8, winter sports spectator expectations.
I'm gonna bring Jared back up, and so we talked about Keisha's procedures, and now he's got what would become USD 312's expectations procedures for winter sports.
We actually had something similar to this for fall sports. We had fall sports expectations and whatnot. Obviously, things have changed since fall sports. Keisha has dictated a lot of things to us. Much of everything that you see on the first page is Keisha Board of Directors rules that they have passed. Talks about the 2 parents or guardians per family. That gives you the exceptions and details about that. Has the winter moratorium on there. The second page talks, at the top of the second page is the the bolded rule that Acacia has in place for expectations of masks and to be worn throughout the duration of the event, the way they're intended to be worn. And then it goes on to say that the people, basically who's allowed at the games, besides those that are participants. So it'll be your workers, your officials, college recruiters, and I will say that it's not detailed in here, but as a league, we decided one college recruiter per college. So for example, if Tabor College wanted to send 3 coaches for girls basketball, we wouldn't allow that. There's several colleges that have, that are in the towns that are in our league. So, social distancing required in the stands and throughout the facilities. Masks must be worn properly at all times. Temperature checks prior to all games. Of Haven, we already do that. Just wanted to reinforce that and have that in there. No pre or post game gatherings on the court. This is not only a league decision, but this is one that Acacia recommends and one that we had in our fall guidelines. Live streaming will be free on Wildcat Network on YouTube. Links will be provided for the home games. Concession stands may be available after January 28th with a limited menu and prepackaged items. Acacia put out a lot of recommendations and guidelines prior to the school year. And concession stand guidelines were either to not have them at all or to have them with prepackaged items only. And then on the last page are the current CKO COVID guidelines. I will tell you that this is probably not set 100% in stone. I know that there's been some talk of adding a couple of things additional to it that are related to the Acacia guidelines. So, like I said, much of my verbal report is listed on here. I think the big things would be masks worn properly by all participants, the social distancing aspect, the no pre or post game gatherings. I know as fans and as staff too, it's difficult to not want to hang around after a ball game, after a big win, and talk and enjoy each other's company. But we're trying to mitigate as much as we can here at school, and that means if you want to talk, you go out to the parking lot, you can go gather somewhere else, but you just ask the people to leave after the game. And we started really enforcing that there at the end of football. Told the coaches, kids, just send them out, they can talk elsewhere. So.
Sure, and Bryce brought it up earlier, how do you see our communication of these expectations?
Well, with your guys' approval and consideration of these tonight, our fall guidelines I posted on the school website, I posted on Facebook. I will have these posted as well similarly. Using the marquee sign out here, I've already got a lot of this information up there that Acacia has provided. Doing a thrill share sent out to parents, whether that be through emails or text or something like that. Before every varsity football game, I sent a text blast out, just reminding parents of things, so of our expectations about tickets and who can come to the games.
Basically, the parents need to know, because
Yeah,
they're going to be there.
Well, we've already had people call, well, can I make exceptions? Can grandma and grandpa come? If I can't, we've gotten a lot of that already. I know other schools, we went to the Kingman tournament last week. The Kingman AD said, I had a parent show up with 3 kids, and I told them the kids are not allowed in. She goes, well, where am I supposed to go with them? And he goes, that's up to you, ma'am. I had to send them out. She sent them out to the car. And it's, it's 30-some degrees, so it would be important that we get this out to everybody and make them aware that parents only are allowed.
What do you do with step parents?
We do, so we have lists, we have a current list right now of all the basketball. This only affects us in basketball because Scholars Bowl and debate are all virtual, so there's no fans in attendance anyways. But the only other activity we have that's listed in the Acacia activities is basketball. We currently have a middle school list and a high school list. We've listed all primary parents and then step parents as well. But only 2 can come, so what we've been doing is leaving it up. The kids need to tell us.
So they trade off.
Yep, they can trade off, or the kids can say, hey, this is who's coming to the 2 games this week, or this is who's coming, next month or whatever. High school school's really easy. They communicate with me and send me an email immediately and say, here's who I want to come to Thursday's game or Saturday's game. Middle school, we just, been contacting those parents.
Jared, question, come January 28th, it will revert back to our dating criteria?
At this time, I would say yes. At this time, I would say yes. I don't know what Keisha has in store for that period. That's 2 months away. A lot can happen between now and then.
Their policy they adopted is through January.
Yes, the policy of 2 parents or guardians is only to January 28th. After January 28th, it would be our gating, yes, which is just 2 families. That means anyone can come and we go back to gates. And right now, we just have a pass gate list. So like I said, the other schools provide those lists to us, and you just come to the door. In high school, you have to pay, but middle school and JV and stuff, you just show up at the door, and check it out. Any questions, concerns?
You asked about earlier in your earlier report, it said something about how you want.
Yeah, so masks, says, I know as a staff, and especially as an administration, we're concerned with masks. We just want to make sure that we have your guys' support in that, because this is a Keisha mandate. And talking to Keisha, talking to other schools have been reported already to Keisha about, everything's live streamed now. So Keisha could literally get on any night of the week and see 100 games and see who's following the rules and who's not. And there's whole school districts that are not enforcing it. And so we just want your guys' support that when we enforce this, we're gonna have your backing and blessing to do this. We're a member of Keisha, and I wish to remain a member of Keisha, so. And in their good graces. So, Keisha, also determines when we get to host a sub-state event, or when we get to host a regional event, and we're 2 for 2 my years here, so I'd like to keep that going.
I think if parents, if you're having trouble with people, I think if they knew that puts us on the line from, with Keisha and what that could mean if that could,
Yeah.
The mask wearing puts us in jeopardy. I think that's your number one thing to say, because, as a parent wanting to watch a participant, my kid participate, I'll wear a Tyvek suited if I have to,
Yeah.
I think if that's communicated, I think most people should.
Yeah.
I would think most people would
And we
comply.
wanted to make sure that, that it was brought to your guys' attention before we started dictating anything like that out, so.
I'll bring you the Tyvek suit if you want.
It is not mandated at this time.
Oh,
Thank you.
We could change that.
Eh.
So do you want us to approve this policy, or just say we're good with it? Anybody have a motion they would like to bring forth, or got any other
Did we
questions
make a
about
mo-
this?
Do we make a motion to follow this till January 28th and then redecide? Instead of putting it in stone and,
Does this say January 28th?
Yeah, at least for the fan portion of it, yes.
Yeah,
So you could just adopt.
The mask mandate,
through January.
the mask
28th,
mandate's through
so
the entire winter sports.
That's next year, time out loud.
Yeah, and I think I put, maybe I didn't, I think I put for Keisha on some of these, I didn't actually.
well, I think we have no choice but to follow Keisha's, or else lose our standing, so we have no choice in the matter. So I'll go ahead and make the motion that we follow this criteria.
Okay, thanks Ken for that. Got a second from Paul, all in favor? 6-0.
Okay.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. Approval of resignations and contracts, Clark.
Yeah, and that really ought to say work agreements and contracts, so I think we'll do them on one of those, we can change that for later. So we've already approved the resignations and the consent agenda, so work agreements, are listed there below. Mitzi Dale, Bridge Para, Cassandra Juarez, Bridge Para, Anna Coker, after school program. You see, those are all for the grade school. But, we have some needs at our grade school. Michael Horch caused us to hire some technical folks. And, so that's what these are. So those are what we're requesting to approve.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion to approve the work agreements
I'll make a
listed
motion.
below. Bill. Ken, all in favor? 6, no. I'm really trying to beat this 3-hour mark, but. Reports. Ken, do you have an RCEC report?
I don't have much of report, but I will say this, that we are working through our policy manual. We've worked through A and B, we're worked on C, and we found a lot of deficiencies there that I guess we didn't realize, and the current board president has been, I think, on RCEC, I'm not sure how many years he's been on it, but he's been on it for quite a while, and there's a lot of things that they have never done in his time being there, like evaluate the director's performance. That has never been done, or never had it spelled out who was in, like, the chain of command. So there was a lot of things that we're working through to try to get everything current to where everybody knows what's expected. So other than that, there wasn't much, any other discussion hardly on anything else. It's just that we're working through policies.
Okay. Thanks again, Ken, for your participation and representation there with them. Board member reports. You may as well start us off on that, Ken, if you have anything of your own that you'd like to bring back, mention.
There's several things. Probably the first thing I wouldn't mind saying, or asking Cherie a little bit. I guess she left. But I've heard a few complaints about some of the food not being hot after it's transported up from Yoder School to the church there. So I'm wondering if we need to make sure that stays at a safe temperature to where we don't have trouble with kids getting sick. So that'd be the only thing I would ask there. And then on the other 2 points that came up tonight, when we're dealing with, for construction manager, I believe I'm gonna have to sit out for most of that because of the chance of me having contracts with 3 people or potentially 5 people, which if we're pulling from Hutchinson or Wichita, there's a good chance that I already have an existing contract with them. So does that mean that I need to go, I just want to discuss now, does that mean that I completely stay out of all?
Well, I think we'd probably need to go and see who those are first, and then you can tell us. Would that
Okay.
be fair?
But I'm just saying that there's a good chance that I have to sit
I
out on
understand.
the whole.
I appreciate you letting us know.
Yeah, I think when we get ready to do our construction manager interviews, that'll be our time to determine whether that's going to be a contract for you.
Okay.
But yeah, the answer is, if it's deemed to be a potential contract, then you will need to cover those.
I just want you guys to be aware of that.
No, that's good.
It's
Thank you.
probably a good chance that I'll have to sit out on that.
Okay, thanks for letting us know that.
Other than that, I'm done.
Paul? Got quite an offensive line.
That was a fun year.
Congratulations on that year, your boys. Dustin?
All good.
Jessica?
Couple of items, I'll be brief. I attended our delegate assembly for KA. We had some minor changes on the Constitution amendments. They were like, just kind of, we'll see when we go through those changes, like words saying instead of area vocational schools, we said area technical schools. Taking out some pronouns that are gender specific to make them gender neutral, so instead of saying he, saying they or something like that. And then changing the term of the election of officers from the fiscal year to the calendar years to avoid vacancies. So very basic changes there, nothing controversial. I also attended a negotiations training Be getting with our board on that soon. Should be an interesting year with COVID. And then I just thought I would maybe clarify, I know it's kind of a little bit vocal about some things, and I really do, I get all emotional. I do appreciate what our staff is doing to keep our kids in school, and that is important to me as a parent. And as a school board member, appreciate, I know you guys all are doing a tough job, and we have to answer to public as well. So if I seem kind of grouchy, or I'm not trying to micromanage in any way, shape, or form, it's concerning and hard for us all. So I hope I don't come off that way, because I am very proud of our school district and our staff.
It would be disappointing if you weren't emotional.
It would be disappointing if I didn't make it through a meeting without crying.
There you go. Bill, do you have anything?
Kind of piggyback off of that, and some of the other comments I made earlier. Appreciate the administration and the staff being able to be flexible and thinking outside the box and keeping the grade school kids in session. I think that's been, I've heard lots of compliments about that in the community, so thank you.
Clark, you want to tell them about our state convention episode, how that experience went?
Well, I had reserved the community building. It was just Bryce and I down there, but we spent a couple of days down there watching on-demand presentations and then live question and answer presentations. I treated him like a king. I brought him drinks, cheese dip, and rallies and things like that. And, there's some challenges not leaving the district and rolling off. And his phone would ring, my phone would ring. And it was there were some challenges.
It was fun.
We still learned a few things.
Yeah, we did, for sure. You didn't have any other report, right? I mean, you.
I might have one or two items.
Long time now, right?
Yeah.
Did you have?
I'm good. I just,
Kim reminded us on policy updates in January, so we'll see a few of those. And lastly, I need to schedule you guys for Thursday and Friday, so you'll be getting a message from me or a phone call or something here tomorrow or Wednesday about your availability on Thursday and Friday to get checks on. We've got a few times that we've tried to identify, so I'm gonna tell you right up front, I appreciate your flexibility, and Dustin, I know your job will let you leave whenever you want to. Thursday, Friday.
I'm sorry, I meant to ask this a second ago, but are you bringing up the COVID leave again? You weren't bringing up that tonight. If we had questions, that's for our next meeting. I'm sorry if I misunderstood how we were handling that.
What
Okay, COVID leave, we talked about at the very
Oh, yeah,
beginning.
yeah, I'll bring it up in January.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, I have a question, but I'll email
There's
it
a
to you.
document in your drive.
I did see that, but I'll email you my question. It's kind of minor.
All right, our next regular, and I emphasize the word regular, board meeting is set for January 11th, 6 o'clock, right here. I would entertain a motion, and by the way, if you have any agenda items that you would like to talk about or have added, make sure you let Clark and me know about that. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Bill, Ken, all in favor? Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
You made your goal.
Yeah.
Thanks.